Hello, everybody. So we are back for some more of the mystery book read. We are almost done with chapter 3, so I figured that I would go ahead and finish that up. So let's go ahead and get started so we can be on to chapter 4. Let's see, we were talking about how David Rockefeller was a self-proclaimed internationalist, and he was very proud of it. So let's go ahead and start. Rockefeller provided the financial muscle for the Trilateral Commission, but the intellectual firepower came from former Columbia University professor Zbigniew Brzezinski and his 1970 book, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. There were only 19 used copies of the original hardcover version available on Amazon, so I spent $49.50 to purchase one of the few remaining copies. Patrick Wood had given me good advice when he said I should get a copy, as it opened a clear window into the globalist mindset. Maybe I should get that book. Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. Like Schwab after him, Brzezinski spent much of the first portion of the book reciting history and the rapid pace of change. There's a technique that persuaders will engage in to gain your acceptance. They begin by telling you things with which you already agree. And once they have that trust established with you, they try to lead you to their position. So this is how Brzezinski opened his book. The paradox of our time is that humanity is becoming simultaneously more unified and more fragmented. That is the principal thrust of contemporary change. Time and space have become so compressed that global politics manifest a tendency toward larger, more interwoven forms of cooperation, as well as toward the dissolution of established institutional and ideological loyalties. Humanity is becoming more integral and intimate, even as the differences in the conditions of the separate societies are widening. Under these circumstances, proximity, instead of promoting unity, give rise to tensions prompted by a new sense of global congestion. Hold on. As the opening of a book by a Columbia University professor, it's not bad. It's a little wonky, but set up a duality for you between unity and division. We feel excited, and at the same time, we feel anxious. Pretty much how most people feel most of the time. However, it's only when Brzezinski reaches Part 5, the American Transition, about 200 pages in, that he starts to lay the groundwork for his new revolution. He characterizes our war with England as the first American Revolution, the Civil War as the second American Revolution, and the time period after World War II as the third American Revolution. And Brzezinski starts to engage in the same kind of breathless, gee whiz, ain't technology great? Hyperbole that Klaus Schwab will use decades later. The Third American Revolution is even harder to define, for we are now in the middle of it, and thus cannot be certain of its outcome. In one respect, however, it is easier to identify than the second, for its impact and its effect are more concentrated in time. The Third Revolution began gathering momentum after World War II, with the massive explosion in higher learning and the growing acceptance of the social primacy of education, with the union of national power and modern science crowned by the harnessing of nuclear energy and the federal government emerging as a major sponsor of scientific investigation. With the sudden birth of rapid continental communications ranging from the world's most modern and developed highway systems through rapid air passenger transport to a uniquely effective instant transcontinental telephone system And finally, a nationwide television intimacy, with the transformation in managerial techniques wrought by the appearance of computers and other electronic devices that conquer complexity, distance, and even the diffusion of authority, and with the fading of industry as the most important source of employment for Americans. Can you believe that entire chunk of text contains only 3 sentences? A good rule of thumb is that when people use large, elaborate sentences, they want to overwhelm you. Let me break down Brzezinski's argument. More people are going to college. We need a new political system. Big government funds big science. We need a new political system. We have nuclear energy. We need a new political system. We have telephones. We need a new political system. We have highways. We need a new political system. We have television. We need a new political system. We have computers. We need a new political system. One might just as easily have said, we have more flavors than just chocolate and vanilla ice cream. So we need a new political system. As always, these avatars of change can't help but eventually tell you who they love and who they wish would simply go away. In the process, it is creating 3 Americas in one. There is the emerging new America symbolized by the new complexes of learning, research, and development that link institutions of higher learning with society and create unprecedented opportunities for innovation and experimentation, in addition to sparking increased interest in the fine arts and culture, as is evidenced by new museums and art centers. Technotronic America is in the electronics laboratories and centers of learning along Route 128 surrounding Boston. It is in the academic scientific conglomerates around Los Angeles and San Francisco. And it is in the new frontier industries. The suburban middle class increasingly gravitates toward this America, through frequently resenting its scientism and nostalgically yearning for more community and stability. In the next few paragraphs, Brzezinski discusses the other 2 Americas, the factory workers and the first America, the pre-industrial America of sharecroppers and migrant workers from the Mississippi Delta and of obsolete miners from Appalachia, whose income has fallen behind the American average. It's clear from what follows that Brzezinski doesn't like factory workers or people who live in rural areas. His people of choice are those who worship institutions of higher learning, have an appreciation for the fine arts and culture, and long to be part of some academic scientific conglomerate, preferably around the cities of San Francisco, Los Angeles, or Boston. However, it would be a mistake to associate Brzezinski with the radical socialist left, which would like to take more control over the resources. Brzezinski doesn't trust the government, but apparently trusts the rich people, specifically the technocrats. And then going back to the book. The government, as an expression of the national will, increasingly tends to be seen as unable to direct and coordinate national change effectively. It appears to neither articulate national goals nor to develop a sense of national direction. This feeling of uncertainty about national purpose is also magnified by the fading of the established political elite that has guided the nation since World War II, primarily composed of men coming from the eastern seaboard and connected with legal, corporate, and high financial circles. The political elite provided a sense of continuity within the framework of a pragmatic, liberal consensus on the nature and character of modern industrial society. Brzezinski is genuinely telling the public that the problem is rich, powerful men from the eastern seaboard. However, his later answer would be to replace them with people like Henry Kissinger, David Rockefeller, Zbigniew Brzezinski, and George H.W. Bush, which, by the way, are all rich, powerful men that are from also the Eastern Seaboard. And since we live in a democracy where the use of raw power is generally frowned upon by the population, Brzezinski is clear about how the media must be used by the globalists. The courtship of the press and the mass media is a necessary concomitant of courting the masses, since the masses are influenced not only by direct appeal, but also through the intermediary of an image, which is in part built up by the media themselves. The desirability of this image puts a premium on advocating the immediately popular and the fashionable rather than on formulating broader objectives by focusing attention on basic philosophical questions concerning the meaning of a modern society. Yeah, it is more zone focused on what's popular and fashionable, trendy, all those types of things, but anything can be used as a tool of deceit. The globalists are telling us directly how much they need to use the media to influence the public. It's even better if you can attach your persuasion to some type of image. Therefore, it's not that we disagree about whether vaccines are being safely monitored, but that those who think there are some safety concerns being overlooked are anti-science. If you disagree about some governmental program, then that must mean you are a right-wing terrorist. Brzezinski seems to suggest how their plan would unfold. More directly linked to the impact of technology, it involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled and directed society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite whose claim to political power would rest on allegedly superior scientific know-how. Unhindered by the restraints of traditional liberal values, this elite would not hesitate to achieve its political ends by using the latest modern techniques for influencing public behavior and keeping society under close surveillance and control. I have to note that these globalists don't understand that they can't really seem to convince the public and need to use techniques for influencing public behavior and keeping society under close surveillance and control. With these people, it's always about controlling others. It's like a pathological state, the equivalent of a religious fanatic always believing the end of the world is just around the corner. And back to the book. Technological developments make it certain that modern society will require more and more planning. Deliberate management of the American future will become widespread, with the planner eventually displacing the lawyer as the key social legislator and manipulator. This will put a greater emphasis on defining goals and, by the same token, on a more self-conscious preoccupation with social ends. Brzezinski wants the engineer and the scientist to displace the attorney and the judge. What do you mean we need the courts and elections? We have science and social ends. And if the message isn't completely clear to you, Brzezinski will tie up all the loose ends at the end of his book. To sum up, though the objective of shaping a community of the developed nations is less ambitious than the goal of world government, it is more attainable. It is more ambitious than the concept of an Atlantic community, but historically more relevant to the new spatial revolution. Though cognizant of present divisions between communist and non-communist nations, it attempts to create a new framework for international affairs, not by exploiting these divisions, but rather by striving to preserve and create openings for eventual reconciliation. Brzezinski seems to be really disappointed he can't get his world government as quickly as he wanted. Still, he doesn't want you to be sad. it will still be bigger than that other Atlantic community. I think he's talking about NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. What other large Atlantic organization existed in the 1970s? And he takes great pains so that the communists don't feel left out. Brzezinski wants the communists to know there will be an eventual reconciliation between the communist and non-communist nations when they are absorbed by the globalists. In the view of the globalists, their model is the best of both worlds. Best of both worlds, efficient capitalism with zero political freedom. They will buy your soul and your silence with their technological marvels. It's like we've gone back to the days of Mussolini and Hitler, who will at least make the trains run on time. Everything old is new again. What could possibly go wrong with their plan to disenfranchise the rest of us without PhDs? One of the people who was not taken with the globalists of the Trilateral Commission in the 1970s was United States Senator Barry Goldwater, who famously ran against President Lyndon Johnson in 1964 for the presidency and lost in a landslide. However, time has not been kind to Johnson, who is now almost universally believed by historians to have been a crooked politician and a liar of immense proportions about our progress in the Vietnam War. By contrast, the historic judgment of Senator Barry Goldwater has only risen with the passage of time, with even his political opponents acknowledging the man's honesty and integrity. As Goldwater wrote in his 1979 memoirs, "In my view, the Trilateral Commission represents a skillful, coordinated effort to seize control and consolidate the four centers of power: political, monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastic. Ecclesiastical. Whatever. All this, I think that's how you pronounce it. All this is to be done in the interest of creating a more peaceful, more productive world community. Throughout my public life and in these pages, I have refrained from judging other men's motives. I have no such hesitancy about judging their wisdom and the results of the actions taken." Ecclesiastical. That's what I meant to say. Ecclesiastical. Okay. Goldwater saw the trilateralists as an existential threat to the division of power in the United States, which had kept us free for more than 200 years. He was especially concerned about a report presented at the plenary meeting of the Trilateral Commission on May 30th to 31st, 1975 in Kyoto, Japan, which detailed their plans for a centralized economy, centralized political control through Congress, and a program to lower the job expectations of college graduates. In other words, increased misery for everyone. Goldwater was also concerned that the report also suggested it would be helpful to impose prior restrictions on the press and restructure the laws of libel to check the power of the press. It seems to me I've suffered as greatly from an abusive press as any man in public life, but I get an itchy, uncomfortable feeling at the base of my spine when somebody suggests that government should control the news." End quote. Goldwater was attacked in the media as savagely as anybody of his time. However, he understood the importance of a free press, even when it wasn't fair. The system has the ability to correct itself, and the reversal of opinion about Goldwater and Johnson bears witness to this fact. But Goldwater wasn't done with his criticisms. And this goes on again of what he says. "The entire trilateral approach is strictly economic. No recognition is given to the political condition. Total reliance is placed on materialism. The Commission emphasizes the necessity of eliminating artificial barriers to world commerce, tariffs, export duties, quotas, an objective I strongly support. What it proposes to substitute is an international economy managed and controlled by international monetary groups through the mechanism of international conglomerate manufacturing and business enterprise. End quote. One can clearly appreciate the cleverness of the globalists. Many conservatives would applaud the taking down of trade barriers, and yet the catch is what would replace them. At its heart, the difference between the globalists and the conservatives is about freedom. Do we trust the hidden hand of the open marketplace, or do we think the smart people need to pick winners and losers? Goldwater concludes by telling us how we would be treated by the globalists of the Trilateral Commission and their heirs. Populations are treated as nothing more than producing and consuming units. No attempt has been made to explain why the people of the Western world enjoy economic abundance. Freedom, spiritual, political, economic, is denied any importance in the trilateral construction of the next century. End quote. We are currently more than 40 years removed from Goldwater's warning, and yet it seems as if he could have written these words just yesterday. Freedom is under assault in ways that were unmanageable just a few short years ago. Well, I mean, it's always been warned as I dig deeper and deeper into things. There's always been signs, messages, and hints to this, but it just takes a lot of time for more people to wake up and see it. But yeah, this is not an accident. It is part of a long established plan. It is quite the fantastic theatrical entertainment, if you will. It's like quite an elaborate theatrical play just on display to witness. But I do see that, and I do agree with that. However, I also do believe that people have more power than just 1% around the world. So this has nothing to do with social good, helping the children, or saving the whales. It is a battle for control of everyone's future. And it is critically important we understand the enemy who lurks in the shadows. So now we're finally on chapter 4. It's the perfect title as well. You want a hint of it? Oh, I'll just say it. The chapter's called Then Came COVID-19. So that's going to be fun. I'm going to end it there for now, but that's where we will start next time.